Hi everyone, good morning or good afternoon, wherever you may be around the world today. My name is Heather Kernahan, I'm the president of Eastwick, and I want to welcome you to our latest webinar, Evaluating Your Digital Brand Health Through Social Intelligence. Earlier this year at Eastwick, we launched an initiative called CMO 2020, which is focused on developing content, services, and programs to help marketing leaders prepare for what's ahead. As part of that initiative, we created a CMO in Residence program in May, and we've also created this content series, which this webinar is part of. Our topic today is digital brand health, and we believe it's really timely as marketers that we work with look for data and insights to prepare for their 2016 plans. We at Eastwick have a variety of data and analytics partners, and today we're really pleased to welcome Jason Harris from Sysomos as we talk about brand health and social intelligence. I do want to let you know that if you have a topic that you'd like us to cover in the future, have it be from research and analytics all the way to communication strategies and digital marketing, we would love to hear about it and put together the content that really helps you. So if you've got an idea for something, please feel free to email me at heather@eastwick.com. Now, if we look to our agenda for this morning's webinar, we're going to start with introductions of our two key presenters, Jun and Jason. Then we're going to talk about definitions of digital brand health and what is a digital brand health check. We're going to talk about what is social intelligence, and then go through a variety of use case examples. And then we will definitely open up to Q&A. So I do want to let you know that there's a taskbar on the lower side of your screen with a Q&A icon for your questions. As we go through the content, feel free to put in any questions you have, and then we will gather all of those up and address them at the end of the session. So we plan to be probably about 45 minutes of content today, including the Q&A. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Jun, who is Eastwick Head of Research, to introduce himself and launch our webinar. Over to you, Jun.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for finding time to join us today. My name is Jun Quintana. I am Vice President, Head of Analytics and Insight for Eastwick. My experience has been mostly in tech-focused PR communications research and market research. Nearly 20 years of that, with 5 years of that doing customer satisfaction and brand tracking on the market research side. Past clients have included Yahoo, IBM, HP, Intel, and Juniper Networks. So really ninja skills on the media measurement side and also survey research. And glad to have everyone here. Passing it on to Jason, my co-presenter.
Hey everyone, my name is Jason Harris. I come from Sysomos. I'm our senior manager of community and evangelism, which means I run our social channels and our outgoing communications, but also I get to do evangelism, which is talking to groups like you on this webinar, both in person and then also we get to host events and that sort of thing. Get the word out about Sysomos, talk about data analytics, social insight. For those of you who may have not heard of Sysomos before, we're the world's largest social intelligence engine. We work hard to give your brand, your agency, your group insights on what's being said on social, how you can act on that and change what you're doing. Personally, my background is in corporate blogging, community management, and influencer marketing. Before that, I was a programmer. So for 15, 20 years, I've worked hard to make data actionable for marketers. I've worked both on the brand side and on the agency side. My past clients include Nokia, Microsoft, Eli Lilly. I intentionally put my Twitter and my email there. I would love to get questions during and after this presentation. Very conversational. I like to answer all questions as they come in. So I look forward to this conversation and the future conversations that come out of it.
Thank you, Jason. So let's get on to the webinar proper. So what is a digital brand health check? It's an examination of your brands and typically your key competitor state or condition within the digital social landscape. This could include blogs, forums, Twitter, and online news, and can also include your own social channels. The analysis can answer many questions about how your brand is doing. It could answer the question of who's having these conversations about you and your competitors. Are they influential? Are they advocates, or as we call them, bad advocates or detractors? What are they talking about? What are the key discussion drivers? What are the key topics? Answers questions like where. Where are these discussions occurring? In blogs, on Twitter, in forums? And the question of when. When do conversations and social posts peak? Do they spike when events happen, when announcements happen? What particular story types drive the spikes in coverage? Now, there are many approaches to doing this analysis. You can do it qualitatively, like online or virtual ethnography and other qualitative approaches. Or you can do it quantitatively, or what is commonly known as social intelligence. Put simply, it is a body of systematically derived insights on conversations happening in the social space. The approach is inherently quantitative. Charts, graphs, word clouds, looking at web analytics, but ultimately it requires human analysts for context and interpretation in the use of social listening tools and platforms. Here at Eastwick, we are platform agnostic. I keep reinforcing that, and we seek out and use the best tools to help our clients address research and analytics needs. For this specific webinar, we will be focusing on social intelligence. Again, as Jason and Heather said, we partnered with one of our preferred vendors, Sysomos, and have one of their experts, Jason Harris, to tell us more about social intelligence and how we can use it to benchmark performance and leverage insights for communication planning. So with that said, I will give you to Jason.
Thanks so much. So everyone on this webinar knows that today's consumer is hyperactive online. We go online to talk about our favorite coffee drinks, talk about our days, our cats, our opinions. You know, I know that whenever I need to make any decision, whether it's what coat I'm going to buy, what agency I want to maybe interview at for my next position, whatever. We're looking at our online communities to help us be a sounding board. We have unlimited choices on where we can get opinions. We can do it on WhatsApp. We can do it on Twitter. We can share images on Instagram. No matter where you want an opinion, you can easily find it. So social media has made given everyone a voice, and it's authentic. It's unfiltered. But what the challenge is for marketers and for any brand who's interested in doing a digital brand health check, this is a lot of data. It's a lot of data coming at us every day. I know at Sysomos, we ingest 4 terabytes of data every single day across the social networks that we look at. And some of the social networks that we look at are Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook topic data, other networks. It's a ton of data. And so what we do every day is try to work hard to make that data actionable for marketers, communicators, and or even PR. Next slide, please. So now that we know that our customer looks to social media to get opinions, what's the value for businesses? Social is a treasure trove of people looking for advice and opinions. It means that we have a network of conversations, and that information is unstructured, and it's also lacking an easy ability for it to get categorized. But what it can do is, with the right tool, with the right perspective, and the right data science backing it, it can fall into neat buckets and awesome cells on a spreadsheet. These conversations move quickly, but they're driven by humans with fickle opinions and dynamic lives. So sometimes it's really hard to put their opinions in those buckets. But today at Sysomos, we're lucky to have an amazing team of data scientists and that are working with us, the market leaders, and we're also taking feedback from our agency partners and our brand clients and everyone else to make sure that we can take social data and make it relevant to your business needs and with your goals. Next slide. So in 2007, it was all about listening. If you bought a tool like Sysomos or Radian 6 or one of the other ones, you were looking at figuring out what people were saying online so that you could react. But now listening is not enough. We actually have to be listening, talking back, structuring campaigns to help inform decisions and business processes. And this is what we call the social intelligence. Social intelligence is the decisions and the changes that you can make using social data as a lens into what's what's being said in the real world. It's about creating relentless relevance through product, services, and our operations in real time. Next slide. At Sysomos, we have this thing that we call the social intelligence continuum. Like I said, in 2007, we were listening. We were looking back in hindsight. We were looking at descriptive data. But as companies and brands and agencies all work together, and on this graph, we can not only look at descriptive data, but we can see how these different data elements associate with one another. We can see how search and SEO can drive social conversations. We can see how we can do merchandising management based off social insights, based off tracking not only what products are people are talking about, but how they're talking about them. If we see that when like I said in my intro, I used to work at Nokia. When we released a phone, we came at the market saying, "Hey, the camera is the brand new thing that makes this phone exciting." But what people were talking about was actually the fact that the screen was very durable. So people were doing drop tests and talking about how durable the screen was. So by being associative with the different data points we were seeing, we could then take those actions and then predict the next time we came out with that phone, we could predict and then maybe even preempt the market, but again, making our communications, our marketing, and our talking points more relevant to the customer. Again, it's all about relentless relevance. Next slide. So looking at social intelligence and then looking at how those drive business decisions, what kind of social data points and patterns, what kind of actions can we take off them? There's a lot, but these are four bullet points that I think are the most relevant to this conversation. You can see how your efforts, so whether it's an influencer campaign, maybe a print campaign, maybe a display advertising campaign, you can see how these things are driving social conversation and shaping sentiment. If you again, if you're a tech company and you release a product and you think that the camera or the durability is an awesome feature, but you actually find out that people are saying that the battery life is great, you can then take those social conversations and then shape your ad copy. So I know that when I was working in an integrated marketing campaigns, the social ad guys, the people that are shaping our SEO strategy would constantly come to me and say, "Hey, what terms are being used in association with our brand names on Twitter?" And it was always fun to see how when we tweaked ad copy to see how they led to more conversions, they led to more responses to our calls to action. The third bullet point on here is figuring out which products to feature and highlight. This is, again, going back to that merchandising management. Doesn't matter if you're selling toilets at Home Depot or if you're selling books on a virtual audio shelf, such as like an audible.com. Tracking what products are being spoken about. Again, going back to audible.com, if you're featuring the latest John Grisham book, but then you find out that actually that the latest book on the Oprah list is being the most talked about, then maybe you should move that Oprah referenced book up on the home.com page. And then finally, and this is a passion point of mine, influencer marketing. You can find and activate influencers to help raise awareness and drive brand affinity strategically. Next slide. So we talked a lot in theory, but now we're actually going to look at some use cases. And Jun and I are going to tag team this. I'm going to lead off with some benchmarking. So benchmarking is super, super important. One thing that is interesting, one thing that sets Sysomos apart from the competition is that we actually give you access to historic data, up to a year on Twitter and up to 2 years on some of the other social channels. So you can do ad hoc searches. So one thing I really like is that if you're, say, I remember a couple of years ago in the Super Bowl when Oreo did their real time tweet about when the lights went out. If you're looking, say you're an ad agency right now and you're trying to come up with a Super Bowl ad and you want to benchmark and you want to see, exactly what was Oreo able to accomplish? What were the amount of mentions? You can go back up to a year on Twitter using our tool and say, hey, the last time this certain news broke, or this celebrity had that run-in with X brand, you can benchmark it and see exactly what happened, and then help know what the norm is for the campaign you're going to do. I know some of our clients at Sysomos do this in the entertainment industry. We have TV and entertainment clients who will take a show, and they'll have an integrated campaign, and they'll see how that campaign resonated with social mentions on Twitter around that certain show, and then know how to tweak it, or how to amplify it again. And this, I know also for benchmarking in situations I've been in, when, again, going back to Nokia, we could know what tweets and what features around those tweets, what features they were driving, so that we could know what we should put paid amplification behind when it comes to our social messaging, the outgoing messaging. Next slide.
I'll just add for benchmarking that from the context of program development and program evaluation, benchmarking is important so you know where you're starting from. It's the only way you're able to tell if you've moved the needle, and that's one of my mantras. Benchmark, see where you are, and then benchmark against very clear, measurable objectives. With this setup, you're able to tell your team, tell your clients if you've moved the needle. What's important to remember is that when you're benchmarking, these are diagnostic. It's telling you where you're starting from, but at the end of the day, when you're getting your monthly benchmarks, you're able to pat yourself in the back for a job well done, or it's a diagnostic. You can sit down with the team and say, hey, maybe we need to course correct because we're not achieving the benchmarks or the KPIs that we've set. So that's one thing I'll add.
Yeah, and it's also super important to set benchmarks and measure things that you can actually leverage. If it's a lever that you can't control, then there's no reason to benchmark it, because then you're setting numbers and you're setting a target, and you have no ability to change the outcome the next time. So definitely, June. All right, enhanced crisis communications. This is something I really enjoy talking about, because crisis communications happen. Crises are totally unavoidable, but and in the olden days, when we were just listening and just being descriptive about what happens, all we could do was monitor alerts and mention volume, or sorry, monitor alerts and then how many times a certain crises is being mentioned, whether it's again, a celebrity, maybe you're a sports brand, you're endorsing a celebrity, and that celebrity's had a run-in with the law or some sort of thing happening in their personal life that you're trying to figure out if it's going to affect your brand or not. Now with modern data science and with these social intelligence tools, you can actually change some of the discussion that's happening when a crisis takes place. By using a tool such as Sysomos, a listening tool, you can not only find out what's being happened, but then you can go to influencers and influencer communities to help find out who the catalysts of conversation are, to know who to go to help start your own news cycle. So that's the outcome, is that you can change the talking points by producing your own media cycle. I know a lot of tech companies who have had a product, they've had a product come out. The media cycle is going one way, and sometimes the media cycle is actually going that way, and the mentions are showing it on social because of false information. There was a tablet that came out a couple years ago, and people were complaining about the battery not lasting, and they said it was because it was a battery. It was a battery capacity problem. Well, actually, it turned out it was a software issue that they were able to fix the software issue, and then using influencers, they were able to get the word out about that the issue had been fixed, and then magically the battery life had gone to a level where the consumers were expecting. So they were able to use influencers to straighten the boat, straighten the course, so to speak. Next slide, please. This is actually a screenshot from Sysomos, and the crisis that was happening was the tube strike in London last year. And what this graphic shows on the left-hand side, this is our communities graph. The colors are actually sub-communities inside, and this is looking at the communities around keywords such as London tube strike and all the associated words around that around that event. The colors show different types of communities and different types of groups that were speaking about this. The black words in there are actually Twitter handles that we've identified as catalysts of conversations, people who are influencing the influencers. So if we were Transport for London, which is the group that oversees the London Transit, basically it's the London Transit Authority, we could go to these people and ask them to tweet out information on our behalf. In this certain case, there was erroneous information out there about tube stations being closed, and they were actually able to go to these people and say, hey, we see that you're influencing conversation. Can you let them know that that tube station is actually open and fully operational? And then on the right-hand side, these are some other good tools that allow you to, it's word clouds that allow you to peer inside those communities. So you can see on the right-hand side, the upper is the word cloud for the blue community. And then the one on the lower right is the word cloud for the orange community. You can actually see what's being said inside those communities to help give you strategy into what you're going to say to these people to help them, or to help alleviate the situation. One thing I really like about tools such as the one you're seeing right in front of you is it allows you to tailor your response to different communities and actually get to the heart of the real issues that people really care about. Or they're worried about, in this case, they were worried about getting to work on time. They were worried about getting to whatever appointment they were trying to get to. And Transport for London, using a tool like this, was able to help, again, right the ship, so to speak. Next slide.
For this one, for this example, we focus on leveraging insights from social conversations to formulate real-time responses during potentially controversial scenarios. For a client, a not-for-profit technology organization focused on women and diversity in technology, the challenge was to maintain a positive reputation during an annual event where speakers from previous years had stirred controversy, leading to negative sentiment. The action was to do social listening on what turned out to be tens of thousands of comments on mostly Twitter, mostly about the event. The Eastwick team actively responded to comments while monitoring, controlling, and escalating concerns and questions. And the outcome, the team quickly addressed event concerns and questions, which prevented degradation in brand perception. Next one, we look at how social intelligence was leveraged to shape content. For this scenario, the challenge was, for a major cloud computing client, they needed to find out what its aspirational competitors were doing to attract developers, engineers. The action was, we at Eastwick conducted content analysis on the competitors' engineering blogs to determine topics, blog post types, intended audience, and other content parameters. The outcome was we got findings that revealed that common attributes across a competitive blog set, mainly posts were product-centric, open. There was an open sharing of innovations. They were very eager to share what they were doing, all these wonderful projects going on, and an overall support for open source. So this provided input into shaping content on the client side. Back to Jason.
And in this case, we're talking about eliminating randomness. So a lot of times when you're running a social channel for a brand, a small business, anywhere, you're trying to figure out where you can drive proactive engagement, or you're trying to find out, say a crisis does hit, or you know, something does happen, and you have a ton of incoming responses. You're trying to figure out who to talk to first. Inside Sysomos, and I hope inside your listening tool, if you don't have Sysomos already, we have something called authority scores. So if you look on the screenshot on the right-hand side, that middle score, the one where it says 10 out of 10 and it lists the followers, it actually, so we rank people in Twitter on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most influential, 1 being less influential. So that if you're a brand and you're trying to you're trying to find influencers, there's that as well. But also if you're trying to figure out who is the most important to talk to first, if you've got a small social team and you're trying to bat down the little problems as they come up. This allows you to be strategic and have the most reach in the most amount of time. And then as time allows it, then you can go back and of course answer everybody. Next slide. Ensuring customer happiness. So it used to be in before social media and in most transactions that the customer relationship would end when the transaction took place, when the money actually changed hands. You had a happy customer, they'd walk away. But in the social media and the sharing world, this is not the case. We actually have many cases where when the transaction takes place, when money exchanges hands, that's the beginning of the relationship. And I actually have a personal anecdote about this. A year ago, I went to Home Depot and I bought, my wife and I bought appliances for all of our kitchens. So 3 different appliances. We spent a ton of money, and we were happy at first. But then when the installer came, we had a terrible experience with him or with them mid-month, and Home Depot unfortunately couldn't do anything about it because of the way their relationships are set up with their installers. But it was really unfortunate. What I did is we returned and then went through our local company who had local installers and had a great experience. But to illustrate this in the social world, on the left-hand side, this is Lowe's, who had a contractor come out and install a door that someone had bought in their store and had a 1/2-inch gap. And unfortunately I followed this tweet over the few weeks after it happened, and Lowe's didn't respond. But on the right hand side, Shane Adams, who is actually a friend of mine in Kansas City, Missouri, tweeted at Home Depot, replied, and then also followed up to him to make sure that the team that it was handed off to make sure that they handled Shane in an appropriate way, so that they not only followed up originally, but then followed up about a week later to make sure that the outcome was satisfactory. So in the social world, in the socially intelligent company, the company that responds the right way wins, and the business who doesn't, they're going to lose out time and time again. Next slide. So I would challenge every one of you to shift your communication. So again, move on from social listening, adopt social intelligence. Go for being relentlessly relevant, and do it by harnessing social data to create personalized, targeted experiences for your customers on an ongoing basis. Give them context, react in real time, go from noise to signal. Use the data to, rather than become reactive, to become predictive. Spend time toiling over data inside your social listening tool. Put it in the spreadsheet. Take it out of, and that's another challenge. Is it's very important to take the data and take what you're learning outside of just the marketing department. In many organizations, the social media and social management happens inside marketing, but that's a fallacy. What should be happening is, when you get a learning, when you get an experience, when you get a customer tale, walk over to the group responsible. So if say, like, I have another personal anecdote. Just recently, my family and I were in Alaska, or we're in Hawaii, flying home on Alaska Airlines, and they let us check bags for free. We were flying home with our 2 young children. We were doing a red-eye flight. So just yesterday, I tweeted at Alaska Airlines and praised the person by name, the person that was in the Maui airport that worked for Alaska Airlines that helped us out. And Alaska Airlines not only followed up with me, but then direct messaged me privately and said that they had shared the information with the person's supervisor inside, at the Maui airport, which is awesome. That's exactly what you want to see happening. If there's a problem, you should take those learnings and walk it over to your product people or to your customer support people, and let them know about what's going on. The most effective way to let people know what's going on outside your marketing department is to actually develop the story. Don't just go to them and say, hey, that product we released, we're getting a bunch of complaints on Twitter. Actually count the problem. Say, in the last 48 hours, we've gotten 20 complaints about this certain person or this certain issue that's happening inside our Seattle store. Give them as much of a story and give them as much context as possible, so that they can then act and know exactly how to act instantly, not have to come back at you with more and more questions. Next slide, please. And then to close out the social intelligence theme, the way that you can tap social intelligence, the way you can make it most relevant is to understand not only what your community is saying, but why they're saying it and what they care about. Don't only look at one channel. Look at the entire social web. Be sure that the tool you're using and the agency partners that you've selected are accessing the entire social web right now. Challenge yourself to present the relevant moments in real time as they're happening to your management, to other departments. And then also learn the fabric of your communities. Know who the influencers are. Know who the people who are leading the conversation. Just like a cocktail party, there's always people who kind of rise above the conversation to be the conversation leaders. Listen strategically and learn who those people are, and then shape your content and your social engagement strategy around those needs. Mirror the language that they use. Use text analytics tools within the ones that you have access to, and know what the adjectives are that people use in association with your brands or your products. And then again, you're creating relentless relevance to help drive amazing relationships, to make it contextual. So at this point, I welcome questions. Jun and I are here to help. So back to you, Jun.
Thank you, Jason. For this slide, I'd only like to reinforce a few points. For number one, all good best practices. I'd like to infuse this with the idea again of benchmarking. That it is always important to know where you're starting from. It's good to know what the community is saying. And if you go beyond that, even what online news is saying about your brand, about your competitors. And from there, with a benchmark that's set, you could do your monthly reporting, your quarterly reporting, and know, again, you're using analytics not only to benchmark, but also to diagnose. So we're using these medical-related terms because that's what measurement does. It tells you the state of your brand versus competitors. And you do this through benchmarking, through lining up your objectives with your clients, your bosses, business objectives, and then proceeding, knowing you have benchmarks and analytics to know if you need to course correct or not. The other thing that I'd like to stress is the shaping content discussion for number 4. If Jason has his favorite of influencers or influencer marketing, my favorite really is doing content analysis to shape content. So there is always that opportunity. It doesn't have to be a massive endeavor, but it's really getting into content, whether it be blogs or Twitter or forums, and conducting very defined analysis of the type of content that is there, of sentiment that is there, that's coded manually. And again, using these as benchmarks so that you can test based on insights you gather if the insights that you infuse with planning content are working or not. Again, if the expectation is to increase engagement based on some approach that's given insight by the data, you can course correct and say, okay, this isn't working. The data says that this type of topics are no longer resonating with the client. Let's do a deep dive to content and see what resonates. So as Jason said, we're here to answer questions. We're going to move to the Q&A section.
We do have a couple questions. The first one I'll send to you, Jun, and then Jason, you can add commentary. The first question is, how can social intelligence be applied to a small company that doesn't have a lot of data, or maybe social data, so maybe not a big social following on their own channels? So how can it be applied to a smaller company?
I'll give this a stab, Jason. I think it's the concept of doing social intelligence applies to whatever size you are. You could be a brand of one person. And then again, you don't need to spend a lot of money on the analytics. There are free tools out there that you could use, like social media. Mention, and my social media experts here could provide more information on free tools. But it's really the idea of listening, of looking at what people are talking about. If people, your audience, are reacting to the content that you're sending out there. Again, there are free tools, and if you have the right questions, you could address that regardless of your size. If Jason has anything to add to that.
I do, and actually, it's this kind of a passion point of mine, because yes, you can start with the free tools. I'll mention a few: TweetDeck, Hootsuite is free. Just and probably can get a little bit in trouble with that because I'm mentioning some competitors, but it doesn't matter because it's all about making it so that you can hit the ground running. Because what you'll find is when you start out say you're a small company, or say you're a brand starting out, or say you're a project starting out, maybe you don't even have to be a brand. You could be a nonprofit, you could be a corner coffee shop. It doesn't matter. The listening strategy is the thing that you need to key in on, and listening is actually really easy. It's really easy to think about. So say I'm a corner coffee shop. I'm opening up in the downtown of the city. I am going to listen for my competitors that are closest around me. I'm going to listen for my owner's name and maybe people in my city looking for coffee. I'm going to reply at them and say, hey, I saw you just checked into Foursquare at Starbucks down the corner. I'm going to challenge you that my coffee's better, and I'm willing to give you $1 off if you show this tweet to me. And I'm going to give you $1 off your next latte if you show this tweet to me. And I'd love to prove that our coffee's better, and we have more outlets, and so figure out what is advantageous about your business, and talk back at people. They want to be spoken to. I bet if you sent that tweet, at least 50% of people are going to walk down the block to check out your coffee shop because they love the inventiveness of what you're doing. So what you're going to find though is if you start listening and maybe you talk to people on a couple different social channels, and you're using TweetDeck and maybe you're using Hootsuite, you're going to pull it in. You're actually going to outgrow those channels, and then you're going to be looking at something like a Sysomos or something else. And that's a good thing. It's a good thing to get to that point, because then you're driving revenue, you're getting people to your website, you're driving conversions, whether it's trying to get them to buy a cup of coffee, trying to get them to sign a retainer if you're an agency, or trying to get them to consider you as a business owner. I actually did a webinar back in July called "What to Listen For When No One's Talking About Your Brand." So I actually talked about this for about 45 minutes to an hour. It's on the Sysomos homepage. There's a webinar section. I've got the recording, and I've got the full slide deck on there too. And I also wrote a post about it on our Sysomos blog. So to the person who posed that question, there's lots out there to find out. And so just go to sysomos.com and start at the webinar page, and you'll see.
So we have another question for both of you. And just you kind of touched on this. The question is, what is the importance of context and the context around a post or a product in social intelligence?
Context is everything. If you reply at them, so going back to that example that I just said about the downtown coffee shop, context is everything. So if I am that business owner trying to get that person to consider the customer, or to get that customer to consider me over the Starbucks, I'm going to look at their Instagram photo or their Twitter photo. I'm going to look at what they ordered. I'm going to say, like, did they order a drip coffee? Then I'm going to offer them $1 off a drip coffee. Or if they ordered a latte, or they hashtagged it amazing latte or pumpkin spice latte, I'm gonna try to be as contextual as possible, because that being contextual shows the person that received the tweet or you're trying to market to, it shows them that you took the time to care about what they were doing, and they're going to take the time to care to listen. If you get a blind communication, so as a side note, I'm a tech blogger, and so I'm an influencer, and I get pitches all the time from PR agencies. And when I get a blind pitch about some Indiegogo thing or something that's totally not relevant to things I post about on my blog, I don't pay attention to it, and I instantly dispose of it. I get about 20 pitches a day, and I'm a small-time tech blogger. I can't imagine what someone who writes at TechCrunch or ReadWriteWeb gets. But context is everything, and being relevant is everything. And it's not that time consuming to be contextual. You just need to care. So if it's something that you care about, then invest the time.
I guess the additional perspective I have on context is that from an agency perspective, we have analysts who go through the data, and they are the experts in using the tools and crunching the numbers. For me, context means that we will create reports, but we'll have to sit down with the account teams who are actually the ones in the forefront doing the communications. That's the context that I need. So I produce reports, but in order to eke out insights and recommendations, I need the context of the account teams to give it more flavor. And when I say that your engagement increased mid-year of last year, they provide the context of that, because they are the ones who are in the forefront and know what's going on with the account most intimately.
Yeah, that's true. I'll echo that. So the example that I've been using is a small-time coffee shop in the downtown of a city. If you're looking at more data, say you're looking at say you're a multinational corporation and you have a product on the market and you're trying to see how it's doing, you need to have a data analytics tool. So something like a Sysomos that can help pull in millions of messages across social media. So blogs, Tumblr, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. So what you're going to do is you're going to do queries, and you're going to ingest, say, a million content items using tools. So the data analytics tools, they'll give you the word clouds. We do something called entities. So actually, we can actually point out people, places, and things that are being said in association to the keywords. So, but like Jun said, then you need a human to actually read the data, read the output, make sense of it, and make it contextual to your business. So that's where having a technology partner and then an agency partner is super beneficial to either SMB or a mid or a big enterprise.
Great, thank you. And we do have another question. Social intelligence makes sense, but can you talk about what people should be looking at to better segment their audiences or craft a better content strategy? So in a coffee shop example, lots of people drink coffee, there's CEOs, moms, teens studying, etc. So how can you use social intel to segment those audiences to then maybe inform a content strategy?
As far as content, go ahead, Jason. We're both excited to answer this.
I'm jazzed. I'm chomping at the bit here. Again, you have to look at you have to dissect the data. You have to look at, I wish I could pull up Sysomos. I wish I could pull up and show it, but with the right tool and with the right strategy, you can pull up people by geography. You can dissect them by age. You can dissect them by what else they're talking about. So like in a word cloud, I showed you a word cloud. I showed the webinar group a word cloud earlier. So say again, I'll just go back to Nokia because that's what I know. So we released a phone called a Lumia 1020. I can actually then pull up the word cloud and say that people are talking about the camera a lot. I can click on the camera keyword in that word cloud and then pull up what people are saying in relation to Lumia 1020 and the camera. So then I can kind of zoom in on the data and say, okay, are they saying that they like it? Are they saying the camera sucks? Are they saying the images are grainy? Are they saying they're good at night? You can actually kind of dig into that. And then you can segment and saying, okay, people in the UK are actually talking about the battery life. People in the US are talking about how it's fast on AT&T's LTE network, or whatever. So and then you can inform your content strategy. So say there might be an example where people aren't talking about the battery, but you want them to be. So then as a content marketing group, you can arm the people running your social channels, the people writing blog posts, the people responding to people in forums. You can arm your customer care teams to then, hey, let's talk about the battery more, because that's a huge key selling point. And unfortunately, it's not resonating right now in the market. Go ahead, Jun.
Oh, I was going to echo the same thing. It's also making use of text analytics to figure out what people are talking about. And also going to forums Again, based on well-built keywords, so that you're surfacing the relevant conversations, you could look at forums and see what people are saying about you or your competitors. And if there are great things being said about your competitors, then you could perhaps, if it's the right scenario, leverage those insights as well. There are also scenarios where you could go to online news or blogs and just see the trends that you're seeing, and then make that a basis for saying that for my audience, this is correct. I will run with these insights, or otherwise you will do the opposite if it's exactly what you don't want to do. Again, there are text analytics available that give you, that scour through tons, millions of data to give you quick summaries of what people are talking about. And in that way, you're able to shape content. And the example I gave earlier really was figuring out, and this was more a manual approach, scraping content in blogs and making sense of trends in what people were writing in these aspirational set of Silicon Valley companies. The question was, what are they writing about? How are they writing things? Why are developers, engineers flocking to their to these companies? We think we're innovative. We're a great company. What can we do with a blogger program so that we could attract these developers as well? So like I said earlier, we went in, we did a sampling of blog posts on these aspirational sets, and ultimately we figured out what stick, what was most engaging when these developers were writing blog posts about their projects and being very transparent about it and sharing tips, and also embracing open source. And you'd almost think that it's logical that if you want people to develop on your platform, you use open source. It's for everyone. But these are things that are not easily apparent. You could say that it required an analysis of content, in this case blogs, for us to go back to the client and say, for a successful blog program with recruiting aims, with attracting the best of the Valley and beyond, these are our recommendations on how to shape content on your blogs. So I hope that kind of helps.
So we are running.
I wanted to echo, I just want to talk about one more thing. So Jun just discussed something super important, and that's the competitor analysis. You want to know what's being said about your competition, what they're saying, what's resonating. This is something that's actually really, really important. When I was at Nokia on the agency side, I had access to 4 or 5 different tools. And one thing that really frustrated me about some of the tools out there in the market is that they restrict you on what data you can pull in. You can only get so many search queries or so many returns. One thing that's kind of cool about Sysomos, and I say this not to be salesy, but just as a tip for people if you're shopping for tools, is that you get unrestricted access to queries. So if I'm Nokia, I can then pull up what's being said about Samsung, what's being said about HTC, what's being said about iPhone. And it's super important to go back to Jun. Another thing Jun was saying is, benchmark what was happening a year ago, benchmark what's being said now, and then benchmark your own analyses. And then another thing he mentioned, touched on an influencer program. One thing that's super important if you do a blogger relations program or an influencer program is that you want to pay close attention to what those folks are saying. And so you want to choose a listening tool that allows you to filter down. So not only do I want to see what the universe is saying, but I want to see what this list of 20, 30, 50, 40 people are saying. And that's something that's really, really easy to do in your listening tool. So I would suggest you talk to your account rep and whatever you're using and find out how to do it.
So we're running a little short on time. We're going to have one last question, and that's to both of you again. What are some of the best strategies for people looking to start benchmarking, and what are some quick ways to start doing that?
One advice I will give, and I always give this to teams, wherever I've been, is that there's always the question of, Jun, what is the norm? What is the norm for share of voice? What is the norm for being prominent in coverage, in sentiment? Absent any publish data on a benchmark in your industry or in your space, my advice is start the benchmark, again, doing it correctly, measurable objectives, and let the program run and measure. And whatever numbers you get, let it trend for 3 quarters or a year, and then you'll see in your own scenario, not relying on any norm, where you fall. So if it's typical for what you find out after maybe a half year of running benchmarks, you're able to see that typically you get 10% of your mentions in, let's say, business press or online business press. Then you could start your KPIs based on what you see and hold yourself accountable on what you're seeing panning out as far as your share of the total conversations, your share of article types, of media types. So that's always my quick advice on the idea of benchmarking.
I would just relay that it's good. Yeah, it's good to figure out what theories you want to test. Again, the things that you can actually pull levers on. Those are the things that are important to benchmark. So figure out what is important to your business. Do you want to get more customers in the door? Do you want to convert existing customers? And then develop your theories, and then do the benchmarking. And then again, yeah, like Jun said, visit it in 3, 6, 9 months. Don't be fickle or don't be finicky. Don't be true to what you're going to test. And then react accordingly.
Well, it's Heather back again. Jun and Jason, thank you so much for the content today. We covered a lot about digital brand health, social intelligence, all the way through to content marketing. So for everyone on the line, we will post this webinar as a recorded asset on the Eastwick website, and we'll send a note out afterwards to let you know when it's live. And thank you so much for joining us today. Have a great Friday.